In these same words, both parts of man the poet doth express as in a glass, and given us instruction to address ourselves to know our own estate, as that we be not born to follow lust, or serve the paunch like brutish beasts forlorn, but for to lift our eyes, as well of body as of mind, to heaven as to our native soil, from whence we have by kind our better part, and by the sight thereof to learn to know and knowledge him that dwelleth there, and wholly to bestow our care and travel to the praise and glory of his name, who for the sakes of mortal men created first the same. Moreover, by the golden age, what other thing is meant than Adam's time in paradise, who being innocent did lead a blissed and happy life until that through sin he fell from God, from which time forth all sorrow did begin. The earth accursed for his sake did never after more yield food without great toil. Both heat and cold did vex him sore, disease of body, care of mind, with hunger, thirst, and need. Fear, hope, joy, grief, and trouble fell on him and his seed. And this is termed the Silver Age. Next, which there did succeed the Brazen Age, when malice first in people's hearts did breed, which never ceased growing, till it did so far outrage that nothing but destruction could heat thereof assuage. For why men's stomachs, waxing hard as steel against their God, provoked him from day to strike them with his rod. Proud giants also did Aris that with presumptuous wills heaped wrong on wrong, and sin on sin, like how huge and lofty hills, why they strove to climb to heaven, and God from thence to draw. In scorning of his holy word and breaking nature's law, for which anon ensued the flood which overflowed all, the whole round earth, and drowned quite all creatures great and small, excepting few that God did save as seed, whereof should grow another offspring. All these things the poet here doth show in color, altering both the names of persons, time, and place. For where, according to the truth of Scripture in this case, the universal flood did fall but 1600 years, and 56 after the creation, as appears by reckoning the ages of the fathers, under Noe, with whom 7 other persons, like Safgar, did enjoy within the ark, at the end of the whole year did stay, upon the hills of Armony. The poet following the fables of the glorying Greeks, who shamelessly did take the praise of all things to themselves, in fabling wise doth make it happen in Deucalion's time, who reigned in Thessaly 800 winters since Noe's flood, or thereupon well nigh, because that in the reign of him a mighty flood did fall, that drowned the greater part of Greece, towns, cattle, folk, and all, save few that by the help of boats attained unto him, and to the highest of the forked Parnassus top did swim. And for because that he and his were driven a while to dwell among the stony hills and rocks until the water fell, the poets hereupon did take occasion for to feign that he and Pyrrha did repair mankind of stones again. So in the 6th book afterward, Amphion's harp is said the first foundation of the walls of Thebe to have laid, because that by his eloquence and justice, which are meant by true accord of harmony and musical consent, he gathered into Thebe town, and in due order knit the people that dispersed, and rude in hills and rocks did sit. So Orphe in the 10th book is reported to delight the savage beasts, and for to hold the fleeting birds from flight, to move the senseless stones and stay swift rivers, and to make the trees to follow him, and for his music's sake to yield him shadow where he went. By which is signified that in his doctrine such a force and sweetness was implied, that such as were most wild, store, fierce, hard, witless, rude, and bent against good order, were by him persuaded to relent, and for to become formable to live in reverent awe like neighbors in a common weal by justice under law. Considering then of things before rehearsed the whole effect, I trust there is already shrewd sufficient to detect that poets took the ground of all their chiefest fables out of Scripture, which they shadowing with their glosses went about to turn the truth to toys and liars. And of the self-same rate are also these, their Phlegethon, their Styx, their blissful state of spirits in the Elysian feeds, of which the former twain seem counterfeited, of the place where damned souls remain, which we call hell. The third doth seem to fetch his pedigree from paradise, which Scripture shows a place of bliss to be. If poets then, with leasings and with fables, shadowed so the certain truth, what letteth us to pluck those visors fro their doings, and to bring again the darkened truth to light, that all men may behold thereof the clearness shining bright. The readers therefore earnestly admonished are to be to seek a further meaning than the letter gives to see. The travail attained in that behalf, although it have some pain, yet makes it double recompense, with pleasures and with gain. With pleasure for variety and strangeness of the things, with gain for good instruction which the understanding brings. And if they happening for to meet with any wanton word or matter level, matter lewd, according as the person doth avoid in whom the evil is discernible, do feel their minds thereby provoked to vice and wantonness, as nature commonly is prone to evil. Let them thus imagine in their mind, behold, by scent of reason and by perfect sight I find a panther here, whose painted coat with yellow spots like gold and pleasant smell allure mine eyes and senses to behold. But well I know his face is grim and fierce, which he doth hide to this intent, that while I thus stand gazing on this hide, he may devour me unawares. Nay, let them more offend advices in this present work in lively colours penned, than if that in crystal glass foul images they found, resembling folks' foul visages that stand about it round. For sure, these fables are not put in writing to the intent to further or allure to vice, but rather this is meant, that men beholding what they be when vice doth reign instead of virtue, should not let their lewd affections have the head. For as there is no creature more divine than man, as long as reason hath the sovereignty and standeth firm and strong, so is there none more beastly, vile, and devilish than is he, if reason giving over by affection made it be. The use of this same book therefore is this, that every man, endeavoring for to know himself as nearly as he can, as though as he is in a chariot sat well ordered, should direct his mind by reason and the way of virtue, and correct his fierce affections with the bit of temperance, let least perchance they take bridle in the teeth, like wilful jades do prance away, and headlong carry him into every filthy pit of vice, and drinking of the same defile his soul with it. Or else all headlong harry him upon the rocks of sin, and overthrowing forcibly the chariot he sits in, do tear him worse than ever Hippolytus, the son of Theseus, when he went about his father's wrath to shun. This worthy work, in which of good examples are so many, this orchard of Alcinous, in which there wants not any herb, tree, or fruit, that may man's use for health or pleasure serve. This plenteous horn of Alkaloy, which justly doth preserve to bear the name of treasury of knowledge, I present to your good lordship once again, not as a member rent or parted from the residue of the body any more, but fully now accomplished, desiring you therefore to let your noble courtesy and favor countervail my faults, where art or eloquence on my behalf doth fail. For sure the mark whereat I shoot is neither wreaths of bay, nor name of poet, nor meed, but chiefly that it may be liked well of you, and all the wise and learned sort. And next, that every wight that shall have the pleasure for to sport him in this garden may as well bear wholesome fruit away, as only on the pleasant flowers his wretchless senses stay. But why seem I these doubts to cast, as if that he who took with favor and with gentleness a parcel of the book would not likewise accept the whole? Or even as if they who do excel in winsome and in learning would not weigh a wise and learned work aright? Or else, as if that ought to have a special care how all men do apply my doings to their own behoof? As of the former twain, I have great hope and confidence, so would I also fain that others should according to good meaning find success. If otherwise, the fault is theirs, not mine, they must confess. And therefore, briefly to conclude, I turn again to thee, O noble Earl of Leicester, whose life God grant may be as long as honor, health, and wealth as ancient Nestor's was, or rather as Tithonus's, that all such students as do travel to enrich our tongue with knowledge heretofore not common to our vulgar speech, may daily more and more proceed through thy good furtherance and favor in the same, to all men's profit and delight, and thy eternal fame. And that which is a greater thing, our native country may long time enjoy the counsel, and they travel to her stay. At Barwick, the 20th of April, 1567, your good L. most humbly to command, Arthur Golding. The Preface to the Reader. I would not wish the simple sort offended for to be, when in this book the heathen names of feigned gods they see, the true and ever-living God the Paynims did not know, which caused them the name of gods on creatures to bestow. For nature being once corrupt, and knowledge blinded quite by Adam's fall, those little seeds and sparks of heavenly light they did as yet remained in man, endeavoring forth to burst to superstition, did decline. Endeavoring forth to burst, and wanting grace and power to grow to that they were at first, to superstition did decline, and drave the fearful mind strange worships of the living God and creatures for to find, the which by custom taking root and growing so to strength, through Satan's help possessed the hearts of all the world at length. Some worshipped all the host of heaven, some dead men's ghosts and bones, some wicked fiends, some worms and fowls, herbs, fishes, trees, and stones, the fire, the air, the sea, the land, and every running brook. Each Heechy grove, each cragged cliff, the name of Godhead took. The night and day, the fleeting hours, the seasons of the year, and every strange and monstrous thing, for gods mistaken were. There was no virtue, no nor vice. There was no gift of mind or body, but some god thereto or goddess was assigned. Of health and sickness, life and death, of neediness and wealth, of peace and war, of love and hate, of murder, craft, and stealth, of bread and wine, of slothful sleep, and of their solemn games, and every other trifling toy, their gods did bear the names. And look, how every man was bent to goodness or to ill, he did surmise his foolish goddess, inclining to his will. For God, perceiving man's perverse and wicked will to sin, did give him over to his lusts to sink or swim therein. By means whereof it came to pass, as in this book ye see, that all their gods with whoredom, theft, or murder blotted be, which argues them to be no gods, but worser in effect than they whose open punishment their doings doth detect, who seeing Jove, whom heathen folk do arm with triple fire, in shape of eagle, bull, or swan, to win his foul desire, or grisly Mars, their god of war, entangled in a net, by Venus' husband purposely to trap him warily set, who, seeing Saturn, eating up the children he begat, or Venus dallying wantonly with every lusty mate, who seeing Juno play the scold, or Phoebus mourn and rue for loss of her whom in his rage through jealous mood he slew, or else the subtle Mercury that bears the charmed rod, conveying neat and hiding them who would take him for a god. For these faults in mortal men do justly merit blame. With greater madness can there be than to impute the same to gods, whose natures ought to be most perfect, pure and bright, most virtuous, holy, chaste, and wise, most full of grace and light. But as there is no Christian man that can surmise in mind that these or other such are gods which are no gods by kind, so would too God there were not now of Christian men professed that worship in their deeds these gods whose names they do detest, whose laws we keep in his thralls we be, and he our God indeed. So long as Christ our God, as we in Christian life proceed, but if we yield to fleshly lust, to lucre, or to wrath, or if that envy, gluttony, or pride the mastery hath, or any other kind of sin, the thing which we serve to be accounted for our God most justly doth deserve, then must we think the learned men that did these names frequent some further things and purposes by those devices meant. By Jove and Juno understand all states of princely port, by Ops and Saturn ancient folk that are of elder sort, by Phoebus young and lusty brutes of hand and courage stout, by Mars the valiant men of war that love to fight it out, by Pallas and the famous troop of all the Muses nine, such folk as in the sciences and virtuous arts do shine, by Mercury, the subtle sort that used to filch and lie with thieves and merchants who to gain their travail do apply, by Bacchus and all the meaner trades and handicrafts are meant, by Venus, such as the flesh to filthy lust are bent, by Neptune, such as keep the seas, by Phoebe, maidens chaste, and pilgrims, such as wanderingly their time and travel waste, by Pluto, such as delve in mines, and ghosts of persons dead, by Vulcan smiths, and such as work in iron, tin, or lead, by Hecate, witches, conjurers, and necromancers read, with all such vain and devilish arts as superstition breed, by satyrs, sylvans, nymphs, and fauns, with other such beside, the plain and simple country folk that everywhere abide. I know these names to other things oft may and must agree, in declaration of the which I will not tedious be, but leave them to the reader will to take in sundry wise, as matter rising giveth cause constructions to devise. Now when thou readst of God or man in stone and beast or tree, it is a mirror for thyself thine own estate to see. For under feigned names of gods it was the poet's guise, the vices and faults of all estates to taunt in covert wise, and likewise to extol with praise such things as do deserve, observing always comeliness, from which they do not swerve. And as the person greater is of birth, renown, or fame, the greater ever is his laud, or fouler is his shame. For if the states that on earth the room of God supply decline from virtue unto vice and live disorderly, to eagles, tigers, bulls, and bears, and other figures strange, both to their people and themselves most hurtful do they change. And when the people give themselves to filthy life and sin, what other kind of shape thereby can they win? So was Lycaon made a wolf, and Jove became a bull, the tone for using cruelty, the toother for his troll. So was Elpenor and his mates transformed into swine, for following of their filthy lust in women and in wine. Not that they lost their manly shape as to the outward show, but for that in their brutish breasts most beastly lusts did grow. For why this lump of flesh and bones, this body is not we. We are a thing which earthly eyes denied are to see. Our soul is we, endowed by God with reason from above. Our body is but as our house, in which we work and move. Then to other common with the beast, to one part is common to us all with God of heaven himself, then to other common with the beasts of vile and stinking pelf. The tone bedecked with heavenly gifts and endless, toother gross, frailly, filthy, weak, and born to die, as made of earthly dross. Now look how long this clod of clay to reason doth obey. So long for men by just desert account ourselves we may. But if we suffer fleshly lusts as lawless lords to reign, then we are beasts, we are no men, we have our name in vain. And if we be so drowned in vice that feeling once be gone, then may it well of us be said, we are a block or stone. This surely did the poets mean when in such sundry wise the pleasant tales of turned shapes they studied to devise. Their purpose was to profit men, and also to delight, and so to handle everything as best might like the sight. For as the image portrayed out in simple white and black, though well proportioned, true and fair, if comely colors lack, delighteth not the eye so much, nor yet contents the mind so much as that shadowed is with colors and is kind. Even so, a plain and naked tale or story simply told, although the matter be indeed of value more than gold, makes not the hearer so intent to print it in his heart, as when the thing is well declared, with pleasant terms and art. All which the poets knew right well, and for the greater grace as Persian kings did never go abroad with open face, but with some lawn or silken scarf, for reverence of their state. Even so, they following in their workers the self-same trade and rate, did under covert names and terms their doctrines so imply, as that is right dark and hard their meaning to espy. But being found, it is more sweet and makes the mind more glad. than if a man of tried gold of treasure gained had. For as the body hath his joy in pleasant smells and sights, even so in knowledge and in arts the mind as much delights, whereof abound in hoards and heaps in poets' been, so hid that, saving unto few, they are not to be seen. And therefore, whoso doth attempt the poet's works to read, must bring with him a stayed head and judgment to proceed. For as there be most wholesome hests and precepts to be found, so are there rocks and shallow shelves to run the ship aground. Some naughty person, seeing vice showed lively in his hue, doth take occasion by and by like vices to ensue. Another being more severe than wisdom doth require, beholding vice to outward show, exalted in desire, condemneth by and by the book and him that did it make, and wills it to be burned with fire for a lewd example's sake. And these persons overshoot themselves, and other folks deceive, not able of the author's mind the meaning to conceive. The author's purpose is to paint and set before our eyes the lively image of the thoughts that in our stomachs rise. Each vice and virtue seems to speak and argue to our face, which such persuasions as they have their doings to embrace. And if a wicked person seem his vices to exalt, esteem not him that rate the work in such defaults to halt, but rather with an upright eye consider well thy thought. See if corrupted nature hain the like within thee wrought. Mark, what affection doth persuade in every kind of matter. Judge, if that even in heinous crimes thy fancy do not flatter. And were it not for dread of law or dread of God above, most men, I fear, would do the things that fond affections move. Then take these works as fragrant flowers, most full of pleasant juice, the which the bee conveying home may put to wholesome use, and which the spider, sucking on to poison, may convert. Through venom spread in all her limbs, and native in her heart. For to the pure and godly mind are all things pure and clean, and unto such as are corrupt, the best corrupted being. Like as the finest meats and drinks that can be made by art, and sickly folks to nourishment of sickness do convert. And therefore, not regarding such whose diet is so fine that nothing could digest with them unless it be divine, nor such as to their proper harm do rest and ring awry, the things that to a good intent are written pleasantly. Through Ovid's work of turned shapes, I have with painful pace passed on, until I had attained the end of all my race. And now I have him made so well acquainted with our tongue, as that he may in English verse, as in his own bee song, wherein, although for pleasant style, I cannot make it count too much to match mine author, who in that all other doth surmount. Yet, gentle reader, I do trust my travail in this case may purchase favor in thy sight, my doings to embrace. Considering what a sea of goods and jewels thou shalt find, not more delightful to the ear than fruitful to the mind. For this do learned persons deem of Ovid's present work, that in no one of all his books, the which he rate do lurk, mo dark and secret mysteries, mo counsels wise and sage, mo good examples, mo reproves of vice and youth and age, mo fine inventions to delight, mo matters clearly knit. No, no more strange variety to show a learned wit, The high, the low, the rich, the poor, the master and the slave, the maid, the wife, the man, the child, the simple and the brave, the young, the old, the good, the bad, the warrior strong and stout, the wise, the fool, the country cloyne, the learned and the lout, and every other living wight shall in this mirror see his whole estate, thoughts, words, and deeds expressly showed to be. Whereof, if more particular examples thou do crave, in reading the epistle, through thou shalt thy longing have. Moreover, thou mayst find herein descriptions of the times, with constellations of the stars and planets and their climes, the sights of countries, cities, hillies, seas, forests, plains, and floods, the natures both of fowls, beasts, worms, herbs, metals, stones, and woods, and finally, whatever thing is strange and delectable. The same conveyed shall you find most featly in some fable. And even as in a chain, each link with another winds, and both with that went before and that follows binds. So every tale within this book doth seem to take its ground of that was rehearsed before, and enters in the bound of that follows after it. And every one gives light to other, so that whoso means to understand them right must have a care as well to know the thing that went before, as that which he presently desires to see so sore. Now to think that none have cause hereafter to complain of me as setter out of things that are but light and vain. If any stomach be so weak as that it cannot brook the lively setting forth of things described in this book, I give him counsel to abstain until he be more strong, and for to use Ulysses' feet against the Mermaid's song. Or if he needs, he will hear and see and wilfully agree, though through cause misconstrued, unto vice allured for to be. Then let him also mark the pain that doth thereof ensue, and holds himself content with that to his fault is due. Fini. All right, let's leave it there for tonight. Yes. So, thank you for letting me read to you. I did find it amusing how this poet had to be like, oh yeah, this book is all about Greek gods, but the people who wrote that really didn't know any better, because actually there's only one God, and that's, Jesus and everything like that. Because I'm sure during this time, he could have been a heretic if he didn't make that disclaimer. So there's a lot of disclaimers here. But anyway. Thank you for letting me read to you. Please check the description for where to buy my art and my channel page for where to send me a one-time donation. And I will see you tomorrow.